You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am doing a solo adventure today here. So we're going live for you, and it's going to be just me out here answering some questions for you, things like that, going through that. If y'all have any fantasy questions, things like that, make sure you throw them out here in the comments and in the chat here, and looking forward to being able to help you guys and walk with y'all on your fantasy journey here. We've got a ton of just interesting games here and an interesting slate to the week here and to the matchups here. Some interesting news kind of coming out here with some early game inactives here. One of the biggest things that has folks kind of going on and asking the question is what to do with this situation that developed in Miami. You had Tua Tagovailoa just get ruled out of the game. Looks like he has a fracture in his finger, and that is going to mean that Jacoby Brissett is going to be your starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. And so that will change things pretty good there, because not only is that going to affect obviously Tua's status for this game, but it's also going to affect some of the other folks out there as well, such as some of the other pieces around him. Mike Gesicki, Myles Gaskin is also going to be affected by that. So you've got a lot of different things kind of going on there, and going to change some of the landscape there as far as how you should be looking at some of these guys for your fantasy rosters there. So I had a question come in earlier today on some of the socials there about, would you go with Brissett? Would you go with Sam Darnold? Was their conundrum there, right? Sam Darnold just got activated today. Looks like he is going to be the go for the Carolina Panthers on this one. So again, a very interesting type of look, very interesting type of scenario to be put in there, where when you're trying to navigate between a backup quarterback who just got the nod that he's starting just before the game kind of kicks off here and tips off here, versus a starter that was unknown whether or not we would get to see him in action this week. And so my answer to that one was to go with Sam Darnold. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Sam Darnold is the normal starter there, but some other very big news coming out of Carolina this week was the fact that Christian McCaffrey is going to be a go in this one, and he is active to play in this one. Now, I expect Christian McCaffrey to have a lighter workload than we're typically used to seeing him do. But at the same time, while Christian McCaffrey's been on the field, Sam Darnold has shown pretty good for fantasy. And so that's one of those that I'm looking forward to seeing what that connection looks like and how that comes to play. And I think that is certainly one that you can see do some very good things there. And so in the question of, Darnold or Jacoby Brissett, I'm going to go with the I'm going to go with the Sam Darnold in this one. And I'm going to ride the thought process of Sam Darnold is a little bit better talent there, but he's also got some better auxiliary pieces around there. Now, that being said, Miami has a very juicy matchup when it's all said and done in this one, because of the fact that they're playing Houston in this game, and Houston gives up a ton of points, things like that. But I'm actually expecting Houston to win that game, and so all of that being said, I would lean towards the Darnold. We do have another question coming in here on the YouTube. Mike Williams or Deontay Johnson, both of those are those are both some good plays, and that's a good problem to have there. I would probably lean towards Deontay Johnson myself. Let's just pull up the old rankings here and make sure that top of my head is what I have as far as my my thought process going through this. And it's close. I have both of those guys very, very close when it comes to this particular matchup there. Deontay Johnson playing the Chicago Bears. The Steelers, I see them winning that game, whereas the Chargers are playing Philadelphia. And again, I think that's going to be a very close game. And the spread also thinks that it's going to be a close game, because most of the time the spread on that that Chargers and Philadelphia game has been about 1 to 1.5 type of points there. So I don't necessarily see it being as close as what the spread is there. I see that being a little bit more towards the Chargers side of it. And that being the case, I think that they'll get a heavy dose of the run game in there as well. You'll see a little bit more of a balanced type of offense. Whereas the Steelers, even when they try and run heavy, they throw the ball a lot, and they use that short passing game as an extension of their run game, which is where Deontay Johnson fits in very well. So I'm going to take what I would see as a volume play here in Deontay Johnson over Mike Williams, who will have some big play ability and some big play upside. But as far as actually when it comes to fantasy, I've got Deontay Johnson ranked ahead of Mike Williams there. But great question. Thanks for throwing that out there, Danugle. Anybody else out there that has any questions, anything like that for fantasy, make sure you're throwing them out here. We'll make sure to hit them up and walk with you on some of your fantasy journeys here as well. So some other thoughts here, right? Like we were touched on the fact that you have some interesting in-game actives, some guys that aren't going to go, some guys that are going to go. Chris McCaffrey was activated on that one. I don't see him getting necessarily that Christian McCaffrey workload. And really, I would hope that Carolina is going to ease them in and allow Chuba Hubbard to really give him a spell and really have a running back by committee today and allow him to really put some of those things through as far as how that looks and works. And anybody out there throwing questions on Twitter, looks like right now the comments aren't working on that one coming through. So if you are throwing out some comments there on Twitter, if you can hit us up on either Facebook or YouTube, the comments are certainly working there. So really do appreciate when folks are able to hit that through. But I am doing everything I can to try and get your questions answered there on Twitter as well. So, another question that we had coming through there was Damian Harris or Darrell Williams today. And that one's going to be a bit of a tough one there. I think you saw the Darrell Williams or Derek Gore actually come through and do some big things there. And I think he's going to get kind of a lion's share of that workload today. Damian Harris, while he is in a little bit of a tough matchup there, I see him actually having a pretty decent game. And so between those two, I would go with Damian Harris over Darrell Williams. Another question coming in here on YouTube: Sanders, Cooks, or Brown? Danugle, if you can clarify on the Brown, are you talking Marquise Hollywood Brown? You're talking AJ Brown? And I'm assuming that you're talking Brandon Cooks and Emmanuel Sanders there. So between those, if it's either AJ Brown or Marquise Hollywood Brown, I'm going to go with them over Brandon Cooks or Emmanuel Sanders there. So if I'm ranking it in order there, I'm probably going to go Brown, Cooks, Sanders in that order. Tyrod Taylor is starting back there in Houston today. And there's a couple of things that Tyrod Taylor does incredibly well. One is throw a pretty good pass, and he looks to throw the ball down the field and try and light up the scoreboard that way. And he also scrambles and runs. And Danugle is saying that it is AJ Brown. So, yep, I would lean towards AJ Brown, and I wouldn't change my rankings on that one, whether and it being Brown, Cooks, Sanders in that order there. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I think AJ Brown will see some decent workload there. He's got a tough matchup, and I think that you're going to see Jalen Ramsey shadow him around the field pretty good. But at the same time, he should get some volume, and he does have the ability to break a big one open. And how I had that ranked, I do have him ranked ahead of both Brandon Cooks and Emmanuel Sanders this week. Thanks for the question, though. Another one coming in, this one on Twitter. I did get this one here. So needing to pick up someone for a running back flex position. The available running back are Mcnichols or Hyde. Available wide receivers are Kadarius Toney or Cole Beasley. That is a pretty good dilemma to have there, where you've got some pretty good options there on your waiver wire. Typically, I would lean towards the running backs here because they typically get a little bit more volume on this one. And that being the case, while you have some really, really good options there, I'm going to lean towards Mcnichols on this one. Carlos Hyde, I don't know that he's necessarily going to see a big workload this week. I think that you'll even see Divine Ozigbo get thrown back into the mix there a little bit. But Jacksonville, I also see going to be down in this game pretty big. They're playing Buffalo in this one. And so that actually hurts both Hyde and Beasley in this matchup. Hurts Beasley from the standpoint that I see Buffalo being up big in this game and being able to carry that thing through to the point where you're going to have to rely on him to put up massive points and being able to help carry your team in that flex position through the first half or so, because once we get into about the middle of that third into the fourth, I don't see them throwing the ball much and really utilizing some of the ground game. So I see a big Devin Singletary, Zach Moss type of second half there for that game. And same thing too. Same thing holds true on the other side of the ball. Carlos Hyde, not really a great pass catching type of back, pass catching option there. So again, I see Jacksonville being down on this one. That's going to make them throw the ball a little bit and try and move the ball through the air, try and play catch up, those garbage time type of points there. So I wouldn't lean that way, which then, process of elimination, that leads us to both Mcnichols and Kadarius Toney there. And both are really good options there. Kadarius Toney, we've seen what he's capable of doing and what he has done as far as, kind of being a PPR monster there. Now, it'll be interesting to see how this one comes to play there because of the fact that we just got news that Golladay is going to play and he is going to be a go. So, Golladay is the guy that they paid all the money to. He came in as a big time free agent wide receiver. So how they utilize both him and Toney in this offense will be an interesting deal to try and see how that one comes to play and how that one works there. So I think Golladay coming back actually hurts Toney just a little bit. I think he'll still see some decent PPR work, but I see Mcnichols being a better option here. So couple of reasons. Mcnichols is more familiar with the offense, while the Titans went out and signed Adrian Peterson, brought him in, and you see a lot of very positive things coming out of that Tennessee camp around Adrian Peterson, where they literally brought him in, signed him, didn't work anybody else out, and he got activated from the practice squad to the active roster very, very quickly. And they've been very impressed with his style, which, he's a downhill runner. He's a between the tackles kind of thing. So he's a type of back that you can bring in and help, set some of that up without having to massively change that offense and how they're going to do things there. But we talked about this a little bit on the Friday show, where Adrian Peterson isn't going to get you the chunk type of plays, the burst kind of plays that a Derrick Henry would get you. And so that's going to change the dynamic of how this offense is going to be able to move the ball down the field. It's going to be a lot more 3 yards, a cloud of dust type of thing than a hand the ball to Derrick Henry and watch him break a 10-yard run, pretty consistently and really get through those holes, or even break an 70, 80-yard touchdown run. So there's going to be some things there that will come to play there. But on the other aspect of it as well, I see the Rams being up fairly big in this one. I see them winning kind of by more than a possession. That 7 to 10 point type of range is about where I'm seeing this one kind of play out there. That being the case, Tennessee is going to be down in this game. And with that narrative in mind, Mcnichols is a pass catching back. I think that you'll see a lot of bracket type of coverage. You'll see Jalen Ramsey shadowing AJ Brown a lot in this one. So that's going to mean that, they're going to have to rely on some other options there. And one of the best options for them is going to be getting the ball to Mcnichols out in the open, letting him run. You still got Julio dealing with that hamstring there that kind of held him up last week in this one. So that could also factor into that a little bit there as well. So at that point, between those 4 options, I am going with Mcnichols, and took a long way around to tell you that. My apologies on that one, but wanted to kind of walk you through the thought process on that one and really kind of walk with you, and so you could see where the thought process was and how we're going with that. So guys, again, I appreciate everybody throwing out their comments, throwing out their questions out here. Again, if you have any questions or comments or concerns for your fantasy rosters, throw them out here. Let's go ahead and walk with you and go with some things here and really take some time for your fantasy lineups here. Some other things there as well. right? We also saw we already covered the fact that James Robinson is not going to go. Tua is out. Christian McCaffrey is back. Saquon out. Kenny Golladay in. So there's been a lot of really kind of big time shakeups here on this one. You've also got the fact that Taysom Hill cleared concussion protocol, but is not named the starter. This is an interesting one to keep an eye on as well. And, there's some folks out there that are needing to have to try and play one of those Saints quarterbacks because of the fact that they had Jameis in their leagues. And now what do you do with that type of information? This is very much one of those that if I can pivot anywhere else on this particular matchup, I'm going to. It's not going to surprise me that Taysom Hill being an active guy, them going with Trevor Siemian because of the fact that Taysom Hill cleared protocol later in the week. So you could see it being the case that they didn't that they'd already been working out Siemian and they were comfortable letting him roll there. But now you've got it where Taysom Hill comes into the red zone type of thing and does that Taysom Hill role that we've seen and we've kind of grown accustomed to him doing there. So wouldn't surprise me to see Taysom Hill get some action in this one and do that. But I also think that that's going to limit both him and Siemian there. So not looking to go that route. Another question coming in on the YouTube. I'm going to butcher this one, so my apologies, but it looks like Sig over there on YouTube. We'll just stop with there with Sig. Thanks for the question. Brandon Cooks or DJ Moore today. Both of these guys very intriguing. Brandon Cooks is a deep play type of option. Tyrod Taylor coming back into this one certainly helps that out. And but again, they're going to be playing a matchup here that I think you're going to see a lot of just overall kind of back and forth. And I'm not very excited to necessarily play Brandon Cooks. DJ Moore, I did have him ranked higher this week. Couple of things there. One, DJ Moore will get more volume than Brandon Cooks as far as how I've kind of narrated this game and how I see this one playing out. So the fact that you're going to see Brandon Cooks get less volume than DJ Moore leads me to go with the DJ Moore train on that one. Couple that with the fact that DJ Moore is a little bit more dynamic as far as making a guy miss, getting up the field, and housing one. He's a guy that can house one from anywhere on the field. I think the fact that you have Christian McCaffrey come back, while Christian McCaffrey may not get his full workload, I think that you will have to see the Patriots take notice of that and have to account for that one there. So that may even free up DJ Moore a little bit more so and take some of the coverage and some of the pressure off there as well. So I like the fact that out of those two, I'm going with DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore will have a very serviceable game in this one and kind of be in that fringe wide receiver one type of territory as far as how I had that ranked. But thanks for the question, Sig. Very much appreciate it. Another question coming in over here on Twitter. Chris on Twitter is asking, I lost Henry, trade Jefferson for Mike Williams and James Conner. His running backs are Henderson and Moss. So yeah, that is a bit of a tough one there. So Sig, I appreciate that going with more. It's all on you, LOL. I'll take that and let me know how that one works out for you, and I'll own it or give myself a pat on the back. But yeah, if I'm in your shoes on playing between those two, I'm going with DJ Moore in my own lineups there. So back to Chris's question. He lost Henry. He traded Jefferson for Mike Williams and James Conner. His running backs are Henderson and Moss. So the thing that you got to look at with James Conner is he's going to be touchdown dependent in that offense. And there's a lot of weapons to go around, a lot of mouths to feed in that one. So you're relying on him to get and the Cardinals have done a great job of that, where they get down inside the red zone. They do a good job of putting up points, very high powered, high octane type of offense there. But you're really relying on him to pick up touchdown, and he's almost a touchdown dependent running back in a lot of cases there, unless they're up big and they're just trying to pound the ball between the tackles or run out the clock. Mike Williams, early in the season, we saw the volume there. We saw the big play type of ability there, which just isn't there right now. Whereas with Justin Jefferson, he is the absolute alpha on that on that deal, while Adam Thielen's is very, very serviceable. You saw that transition happen last year. We have yet to fully see the transition happen between whether it's Keenan being the wide receiver one, between Mike Williams being the wide receiver one there. So between those two, I don't know. That is a really tough one, Chris, because you could go either way, and I can make an argument for either side of that. It really kind of depends, too, on some of your other roster construction there. Your running backs are Henderson and Moss. So Moss is in Buffalo wins has been doing pretty good, and Buffalo's been winning lots of games there. So he's getting you, kind of that running back 2, running back 3 type of usable performance. Darrell Henderson has been an RB1 this year. James Conner is going to get you in that similar type of range as what Zach Moss has been getting you week in, week out there. So you're getting a couple of usable performances there. Jefferson and Mike Williams, again, those two have been kind of performing around each other a little bit, but in a 2-for-1 deal like that, I think I'd rather have the best player in that deal, and I see that being Justin Jefferson. So I'd probably stick with the Jefferson side of it, even though the Conner and Williams get you better depth. And so I guess personally, I'd probably stick with Jefferson, but I'll give you the caveat that if you need depth and you're hurting at some other positions, you don't have flex plays on a weekly basis, things like that, then that deal can make sense for you. But I would probably look at trying to find a deal that that may try and improve me at running back a little bit more so than a flex play type of James Conner, where his fantasy relevance is going to be very heavily dependent upon whether or not he landed in the touchdown. But thanks for the question there, Chris. Hope that helps. Let's go ahead and head back to YouTube. Another question coming in here. Sutton, Landry, Cooper, Tony, Bateman, Myers, or Marvin Jones, pick 3. That's a pretty good, pretty good issue to have there. But just going through this one, right? So I'm going to go with Cooper and Sutton as 1 and 2 there. Both of those guys, I think, will put up some pretty decent games there. Jacoby Myers is an interesting play there. Marvin Jones is an interesting play there because, again, I think you're going to see Jacksonville be down in this game and really kind of going back and forth on that one. So Jacksonville being down big on this one leads some intrigue to Marvin Jones, but it's going to come down to him and Lawrence having to connect on a couple of deep shots there. Jacoby Myers, if he finds the end zone, which we know what that's looked like. So I'm probably not going to go that route. Landry is an interesting one there, but I don't know. All right, so let's break this down. Cooper, Sutton, 1 and 2 there. Tony is an interesting guy there because, again, he does have some PPR upside to it. But with Golladay back, I'm going to fade him a little bit. Bateman, we haven't seen the breakout happen yet. And so, again, I'm looking to see that one kind of play out there. So Bateman's out for me. Landry, I would probably lean towards Landry as my 3rd in this one if I am slated to if I'm projected to win out of this one. And that's where I would kind of tell you that one. So 1, 2 is Cooper Sutton for sure. Landry would be in there if I'm projected to win and I'm needing a safer floor. He's going to be the guy that gives you a safer floor there. If I'm needing upside and I'm needing if I'm projected to lose, I need some upside. I need some big playability there and some swing for the fence type of mentality there. Marvin Jones and Kadarius Toney then come into play there because Toney, again, is a guy that he can make a guy miss and he can do lots of really good things on some of those short intermediate type of routes there. Shepard is out. And so actually, you know what? Now talking myself through this thing, we're going to change this yet again. We're going to go with Cooper Sutton for 1, 2. We're going to look at Toney for that 3rd option there. Landry as the 4th as far as the floor play goes. And if I need the upside, I'm putting Marvin Jones in there at that 3rd one. Thanks for the question. Hopefully that helps you out there. Guys, again, if you have any questions or concerns, comments with your fantasy rosters, lineups, throw them out here. We'll be going live here for another couple of minutes here. And if you guys have any questions, anything like that, would love to help you out with that one there. So, some interesting kind of matchups as far as the slate goes. I'm really kind of keeping an eye out on these early games, Cincinnati, Cleveland. What does this Cleveland offense look like going forward now? We saw a lot of that news coming out, and the Browns having released Odell and him expected to hit waivers starting tomorrow, and seeing what that one plays out there. So I'm curious to see what the offense is going to look like in this one, and I'm really curious to see the kind of the battle back and forth between these two divisional rivals here. That AFC North typically plays a tougher defensive matchup here, but this one here, I could see it getting into a little bit more of a shootout, which is going to be a little bit different than what we see from a lot of these AFC North type of matchups. So I would look for Nick Chubb to have a very big game in that one, right? And I see Cleveland really leaning on that to establish the run, whereas it's not going to surprise me on the flip side of that, Cincinnati really throwing the ball and trying to sling the ball all over the field. And it's also not going to surprise me if you see Jamar Chase house a big one in this one as well. Another question coming in on Facebook. Sorry for the late question here, but thoughts on starting Kittle? I would start Kittle in this one. Debo is still nursing a little bit of an injury there. While he is active and he is set to go, I would go ahead and start Kittle, because we've seen that every time that Kittle's in there, Shanahan game plans for him in there. And when you're talking about tight end outside of Travis Kelce, outside of Mark Andrews and Hawkinson and Darren Waller, they're all really kind of touchdown dependent on this one. So that being the case, you've got volume that you can get out of Kittle there. If he's healthy, I'm going to start him. Unless of course I'm trying to start him over one of those other four tight ends that I mentioned, in which case I'm not going to. And I say that even including, I'd probably start him over Kyle Pitts out there. I think Kyle Pitts will have a tougher matchup this week. It's not going to surprise me if you see Lattimore kind of shadow him all over the field, and then potentially even throw some bracket coverage on him as well, and force the Falcons to really figure out how to win the game, trying to throw the ball to Tajay Sharp, throw the ball to Russell Gage, or really get Cordero Patterson in the mix there. So I would be pretty comfortable starting Kittle in my own lineups, and I've got him starting in a couple of lineups there, which is a little bit surprising for anybody that's listened to this show for a while, because I'm usually a fan of taking a wait and see approach on a guy coming back from injury. But George Kittle, I think you can plug him and go on this one, and I feel pretty confident about how he's going to progress and what that game is going to look like there. So guys, if we have any other questions, make sure you get them in here. We're going to start wrapping this one up and all of that. So if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, go ahead and throw them out there. And while we're waiting to see if anybody does that, do us a favor. One of the best ways that you can help support the show is to go onto YouTube, click the subscribe button, ring the bell button. We do our show 3 times a week live for you. We go Tuesday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern. We go Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. And then we do the Sunday morning show, 11:45 a.m. Eastern. Another question coming in on Twitter. Claridge Aaron is asking Waddle or Bateman. Man, that is a tough one. If Tua was in there, I would have said Waddle all day long without thinking about it. I'm still going to think about it a little bit, but I'm going to tell you that it's Waddle in this one. We just haven't seen that breakout really happen from Bateman yet. And so I would lean towards playing Waddle in this matchup this week. Again, because we haven't seen that breakout necessarily happen from Bateman. The Dolphins will have to throw the ball in this one to be able to keep up with this one, even though they're playing Houston. The Ravens, I could see them putting this game away and the passing game getting shelved a little bit more there. So I'm liking the perceived volume that I'm seeing for Waddle this week. So between those two, Claridge, I am playing Waddle. Let's go ahead, and we got another question coming back here on YouTube. Chase at YouTube. PPR, Patterson, AJ Brown, or Debo. Got to sit one. Last two are hurt. Yeah, they are. But man, that is a good one. I think I think between these two, I've got, you know what, when in question, we're just going to look at the rankings there. And between the two, I've got Debo slated to have a bigger game than AJ Brown this particular week. Again, I think AJ Brown will be a decent play, but I think that he's potentially going to finish outside the top 12 on this one. Debo, I would expect him to finish inside the top 12. Cordell Patterson, I think that the Falcons are going to have to utilize him quite a bit in this game. Again, from what I was talking about a minute ago, I do believe that you'll see Marshawn Lattimore kind of shadow Kyle Pitts all over the field, and that means that Matt Ryan's going to have to find the receiving core of Tajay Sharp, of Russell Gage, of Hayden Hurst to try and move the ball down the field, or they're going to have to try and run the ball with Mike Davis, which we haven't necessarily seen them be very, very successful with and really utilizing that one. So the fact that they may use Cordell Patterson in the run game as well as in the wide receiver game means that I'm probably going to look at going with Patterson there. And so, ranking those three, I would probably go with Debo, Patterson, and AJ Brown on that one. But that's a great question, Chase, and hopefully that helps. Guys, time for one last question here before we chime at, before we call it a day. And Claridge over there on Twitter saying, thanks, man. You are most welcome, sir. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Some other ways to connect with the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast is to head on to the socials. We're available on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Good Old Boys FF. We've also got the website for you. Good Old Boys up. I'm reading the wrong way. GoodOldBoysFF.com. You can find things like our rankings there. You can find lots of good information out there as well, and that could help you. Should you not be able to chime in here or hit us up and us miss the chance to connect with you on any of those socials there. So you can find a lot of our rankings, waiver wires, things like that over there on the website, goodoldboysff.com. Again, one of the best ways to help support the show is to head over to YouTube and subscribe to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button, ring that bell. Again, we do the show live for you 3 times a week, Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern, Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern, and Sunday morning, 11:45 a.m. Eastern. So, guys, I'm not seeing any other questions come in here, so I think we're going to call that a wrap and call that a day. And happy fantasy footballing to everyone out there, and hopefully you guys get all the big wins that you're needing. Remember, playoffs are quickly approaching there, so do what you need to do to manufacture some victories. Sometimes you got to make some plays that you don't necessarily feel super confident about, things like that. But that was one of the things that I mentioned earlier is sometimes you've got to look at some of these things, whether or not you're if you're projected to be the underdog, if you're the underdog in there, you've got to make some of those moves to make some things happen there as far as what that looks like, right? Like sometimes you got to go out and manufacture a win, whether that's necessarily playing a guy that has bigger upside and shelving a guy that may be a bigger name value, may have a safe floor to it. If they go out there and hit that floor, but they don't get you the ceiling, you still lose that game, even though you started the guy that had the better name power there. So that's kind of one of those things there. Take a look at your roster. And you need to go through and just make sure that you're doing everything you can to manufacture wins. 2 more questions, and then I'm going to sign out here. But we've got another one coming in. Damian on the YouTube, Damian Harris or Mcnichols. That is a tough one, but I'm going to look at going with Damian Harris on this one. I think that you're going to see a pretty close split here, maybe a 60-40, 50-50 type of split between Mcnichols and Peterson down there in Tennessee. And even though they'll have some volume to it, you're going to see Damian Harris probably touch the ball 20 plus times in this one. And so I'm going to go with Damian Harris just off of a volume play. And I'm going to take, the guy that touches the ball more has more potential to get you fantasy points there. So I like it. And I would go with the Damian Harris side of it. Last question here coming in on Twitter. MWTAX at MWTAX on Twitter is asking, would you go with Hurts versus LA or Burrow versus Cleveland? Man, that is a tough one. That is a good one. That's a great position to be in for your fantasy roster there. And so looking at it, I'm just going to go back to the rankings here. And we've got Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts neck and neck with each other there. So right back to back inside my rankings here. Jalen Hurts will provide the safer floor between the two. I firmly believe that. So to kind of, give you two sides of the coin there, and you can fit this thing to what narrative works better for you. MWTAX is Hurts will give you the safer floor, right? He gives you the rushing baseline out there where he typically has been averaging 50 yards on the ground and usually putting one touchdown in on the ground as well. And he'll probably get you between about 200 and 250 passing yards out there. It's kind of how I see that with 1 to 2 touchdowns on that. The Chargers have been very forgiving against the run this year, where a lot of runs, a lot of running players are averaging 5 yards a carry on that. So they're susceptible to the ground game there, things like that. The question is do you see Jalen Hurts actually do that, or do they lean on that running back by committee you saw last week there? So Jalen Hurts will give you the safer floor. I think Joe Burrow gives you the bigger upside on this one, the bigger swing for the fences on this one, because I think that he's going to have to throw the ball probably 30, 40 times in this matchup to really do that. And so I've got Joe Burrow one spot ahead of Jalen Hurts in my own rankings there. So if you need a swing for the fences play, I'm going with Joe Burrow. If you need a better baseline, I'm going to look at Jalen Hurts there. Thanks for the question. Very last one here. Claridge, you just snuck this one in before the buzzer. One more time for me. If you Arnold or Cook for tight end, I went with Arnold due to targets over the last 3. Again, when you're talking between a Dan Arnold and a Jared Cook, you are going with a touchdown dependency, right? Like they fall into that touchdown dependency type of tight end to it. They're not going to necessarily get much volume there, like you saw, only getting a couple of targets here and there. So the question for me then becomes, which one of those guys has more opportunities to be inside the red zone? And for that being the case, I'm going to look at the offenses when I step back and I take a look at this. Dan Arnold playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're playing a very tough matchup against Buffalo, who's had a very good defense all year long, does a great job limiting opposing players there. So that being the case, I don't know that you're going to see Jacksonville get many opportunities inside the red zone there. Realistically, I don't know that I see Jacksonville scoring more than about 10 to 14 points in this game. And I see this being a very lopsided type of Buffalo win there. So that being the case, the Chargers are again, they've got a little bit of a tougher matchup there as well. Philadelphia's been limiting tight ends fairly decently this year, but I'm going to take the offense and the volume of the offense and the explosive ability of the offense of the Chargers there, right? So who I think will score more points, right? I think they're probably going to outscore the Jaguars this week. And I don't know that that's going to come as a shock to anybody there, but when I'm debating between 2 touchdown dependent type of tight ends, that's where I start going through the rabbit hole and I start kind of going down that is, which offense is going to be in the red zone more? Well, I think that's going to be the Chargers. Which one of those tight ends then do I think has more of an opportunity to catch a pass and fall into the end zone? Well, I think that's going to be Jared Cook. So kind of based off of that logic, that narrative, I would go with Jared Cook on that one. Just because of the fact that I think he's more likely to score a touchdown than a Dan Arnold, because neither one of those tight ends is going to give you volume upside, is going to give you a PPR type of game from either side there. But great question, and I can definitely see where that one could be a bit of a stumper there, and hopefully that helps you. So, guys, that is going to call it a day for this show. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Always love getting a chance to come on here and chat with everybody and talk about some fantasy football, talk about roster constructs, talk about start sits, all of those great things. Appreciate everybody tuning in and giving your questions out here. Always a privilege and wow, words are tough. Always a privilege and a pleasure to get the chance to talk with you guys and go through that one. Oh, bars in the tuck. You snuck this one in right at the last second. This is the very last one, guys, and we're signing off. Rank these as a full PPR stash going forward. Hyde, P. Ryan, Jordan Howard, Sony Michel, Ty Johnson, Rojo. Thanks. Wow. I don't know that either one that any of these guys really can qualify as a stash for me. Jordan Howard's out though. We see this happen every so often where he shows up and becomes that goal line back and manages to put up a couple of touchdowns here and there. So he's out for me. Sony Michel is worth a stash because if Darrell Henderson gets nicked up, gets banged up, it will be a Sony Michel type of show there. Same thing with Samaje Perine. I'm assuming that's Samaje Perine and not LaMichael Perine there. But Samaje is same type of deal, right? Like if Joe Mixon gets nicked up, banged up a little bit there, I see him being a better option there. Carlos Hyde. We're going to get the answer on Carlos Hyde today on what that's going to look like without a James Robinson. I don't know that Carlos Hyde's a guy that I'm going to want to try and stash on my bench to play on some of that big play upside there. But if nothing else, it would be worth adding him before this game kicks off, and you could see what that one looks like if you're looking to stash that, and because you'll get your answers here quick, fast, in a hurry on that Jacksonville game as far as what they're going to utilize him at. What does it look like as far as passing game work? What does it look like as far as run game work? Ty Johnson has some interesting upside there, but again, I think that's we're very quickly moving towards the Michael Carter show there. And Rojo, I don't know if he's going to be able to dig himself out of that whatever doghouse he's got to put himself down there in Tampa Bay. That was one of those that you saw him have brilliant flashes last year and then just not utilize him this year. So talent-wise, I think Rojo is probably the most talented of these backs. But as far as answering your question as a stash for a PPR, pick up Hyde today, see what that looks like. Because you'll probably still see Sony Michel and Samaje Perine out there on the waiver wire if you are, this week with how that's going to play out there. So I would pick up Hyde, stash him there. You can see what that one looks like, knowing the full well that I'll probably be dropping him to look for either Samaje Perine or Sony Michel for your stash type of option going forward. And Rojo, again, is probably the most talented of these backs, but I don't know that you're going to see him really get a workload to be fantasy relevant there. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us today here. Appreciate everybody chiming in, and Bars in the Tuck. I hope that helps you out on your question there. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us. I do appreciate everybody tuning in and allowing me to walk with you on your fantasy journey there. You can hit us up on our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. Do us a favor, hop onto the YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, ring the bell, Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel, and you got the website, goodoldboysff.com. All great ways to connect with us, and Bars in the Tuck, you are most welcome. Thanks for tuning in. But guys, that's going to call it a day. I'm Derek for the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Be safe.